What's up everybody? So in this video we're going to be scaping my 2-foot tank here. This is quite a large tank. It is a 60 by 45 by 45 or 2 foot by 1.5 foot by 1.5 foot, holds about 100 liters. And I've got a really cool bit of hardscape for this tank, which is right here, this really big tree root log sort of setup. So I've been really excited to use this, and this is the perfect tank for it. So yeah, let's get into this scape. So I'm going to start off by putting this big guy right into the tank here, because it needs to sit hard on to fit under the light. In the future I might change this light and get a hanging light, but I need like a 45 centimeter light to do that rather than a 60, because this is a 60 centimeter or 2 foot light. But it'll do the job for now. It's a Netleer AT5, so it's a nice RGB, quite powerful light, which is good. And there we go. That is the first part of the hardscape, the main part of the hardscape done. So now that we have got the hardscape essentially in, I just have to balance it out with some stones behind. The plan is to build up behind the back section, back here and here, so I can have some Hygrophila pinnatophyta growing out the back there, because it looks kind of like sort of ferns and plants. And the plan for this tank is to have sort of just a big carpet area, and I want it to look really natural and have most of the plants sort of to a scale where they're quite small. So first off, I'm just going to put a few rocks in the back to help build up that section, but also to get this to sit nicely, because it needs to sort of sit on some of the rocks here, just to be able to sit nice and even. We have this one here, that's not bad. I just need one for in this back corner here, so put that there. So the stones, or the stone that we're using for this is black basalt. I've got a whole bunch of it, and I've used it in several tanks. And it's quite a nice dark stone, and it has no effect on the water parameters, so it's an inert stone, which is good. Right, what next? Now, I don't want to fill up too much of this back area, because I need room to plant, as this is going to be my main sort of big planting area in the back, and there won't be sort of, I need the space for the plants, because there's not too many other places where I'm going to be putting plants. Well, the rest of it's going to be carpet, I should say. There's a bit of dust on that rock. That's it. I'm a bit unsure, because this one little section of the stump here sits up quite high, so I don't really want to have the substrate coming up to the base of this, because it's quite high. So hopefully I'm just going to put some rocks in underneath, and I just want it to have the effect where it looks like this is grown over the top of some rocks, and that's why it's so high up. Because this bit here is perfect right down onto the ground, this bit is perfect right down onto the ground, and if I build up the substrate high enough to get up to level with this, it'll start to cover a few more of the details there. So let's see what we got. Don't love that. What else do we have here? This and this. This looks a bit big. This one looks not bad. Maybe this will work. Yeah, I don't like that. All right, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this one, because I like this shape, how there's this nice ridge. I'm which sits under here and looks like it kind of grows across the top. And maybe I'm going to put some substrate down first if I can't find another rock to fit perfectly. And then that bit of substrate can hold it, give it a bit more height, just so it sits up a little bit more around here. But this one might fit in. Ooh, I like that a bit better. Okay, I like that. So that's pretty good there. Yeah, that's nice. Cool. I have one more played around with this tank slash composition earlier before setting this up. And I want to have, just to add a bit more height and detail on this side, this root or this branch here coming off a rock in that back corner. Sort of like that, but try to put it in a bit more behind. So I just got to arrange the rocks so I can rest it on there. Gotta love that noise. The old rocks hitting your glass. Love that sound. Have a look in there. Under there. Goes there. Okay. No. Alright, this bit might be a bit boring. I'm just going to play around with this composition and not talk so much, and we'll be back when I've got this sort of all figured out a bit better. Alright, so I think that's better. I've sort of got a bit of an arrangement back there, and then what I wanted was this to look like it's coming out of the ground up behind, which I think that should be good because it gives a little bit of extra stuff going on this side, a little bit of extra height here, but doesn't look like I've just completely added a brand new branch or root in there sort of for no reason. I have a couple more bits of wood which I might try to put in here. But I don't want it to look too cluttered. I want it to be relatively minimal. So I'll just have a bit more of a play around and see what we get. All right, so before we put down any actual aqua soil and substrate, I'm going to use the little additives from ADA. I've been using them on a few scapes and they're pretty nice. So going to put them in. I bought them for my big 4-foot scape, which hopefully the video is out by now, so you would have seen. And I've got a bunch left over from it, so I'm just going to keep using them until it runs out, but pretty happy with using it so far. Okay, so we're going to start this off with the tourmaline BC, which is like a bamboo charcoal sort of product, I believe, something like that. But you don't need much, just a little spoonful from this. I was a little bit worried when I bought these that it was going to be a bit of a waste of money in terms of how much you need to use, how long they last, because about $30 Australian per little tub, but they've lasted quite some time because I've, you know, been using these on a 4-foot tank, a couple of 30 centimeter or 1-foot cubes, and yeah, I'm only halfway through the bottles, which is nice. So that's the tourmaline BC. Next up, we're going to do the clear super, which, wow. Go down here. Clear super is probably maybe the least efficient, if you is the way to say it. I don't know. It's a charcoal product, so it's a little bit more chunky. So because it's not so finely powdered, you end up using a little bit more. But I think it's just like an activated charcoal carbon sort of product that helps keep your water nice and clear. And I will say the water is very clear on all the tanks that I've used this on, whether that's just because of the filter or not, I don't know. So this stuff is also used with, it's all pre-mixed into the Power Sand Advance. So whenever you buy the Power Sand Advance, it has this stuff in it. But this tank, I'm not using any Power Sand. I've used it on a few others, but not this one. There's not really enough space at the back. And not going to be having any too crazy plants. So next we've got the Bacter 100, which is just a dormant beneficial bacteria. It's a little orange one. And this is all going on. Again, don't really need much. Sort of one, maybe 1.5, 2 little spoonfuls of this. So I think I could probably do maybe 10 tanks this size with a whole bottle of this stuff, which is pretty good because it costs $30. So I thought maybe it was going to be a little bit of a rip-off, but it's turned out to be relatively cost efficient. So yeah. All right, so that's the nutrients in around the base. I'm not sure how much of that was recorded because the just ran out of storage on the card, but that's all right. So next I'm going to put down a small little layer of aqua soil just to get it sort of started. And then I'm going to do some gluing just to make sure everything's really locked in place. And then we'll just top it up with some final bits of nutrients and aqua soil, and that's pretty much it for the hardscape. Now we've got the aqua soil going in. And for this tank, I'm using UNS Contra soil, which is sort of my main soil that I use, mainly because it's the main one that I can get my hands on. And I had pretty good results with it so far in pretty much all my builds. Try not to get too much in your way there so you can see. But there we go. So we'll just do a nice little layer across the whole thing. And then we'll be able to top up the big sections at the end once we've finished all the gluing down. Now we are doing the super glue and the liquid super glue, and we've got some cotton pads to lock everything in place. If you can get a super glue like this is got one of these really fine little tips on it. They're awesome. I've used them on a couple of scapes and it just helps you with the wastage so much. You don't miss everything, you don't pour glue everywhere, you don't get it all over your fingers. It's friggin' awesome. Then I got these little cotton pads. Might need to get my tweezers just to get things in. But yeah, highly recommend if you're doing the liquid super glue to try and get these little pointy nozzles. They're really awesome. So the gluing for this should be pretty simple because it's just potentially one really big piece. But I'm going to need to glue it quite a few times just to really make sure it's got good contact. Otherwise, you know, it could potentially float because it's going to be pretty damn buoyant because it's heavy. It is hollow in the middle, which does help a little bit with the weight and like making it not extra buoyant, but still want to get some really good, nice little glue points in there so it's nice and held together. It's awesome. Give it a thorough soak, and it'll make a little bit of smoke, and should be dry and nice and tacked in place within no time. Okay, so it's been a few days since we started the dark start, and we've got a fully cycled filter on here, so it's taken most of the ammonia out, but the plants have arrived, so I am going to start my planting today. Okay, so to start off with, I'm going to be planting the foreground carpet. So I ordered some Eliocaris, some dwarf hairgrass. So I'm going to be planting that first, and then because it's a bit late tonight, I might add my Marsilia hirsuta and some other plants tomorrow when I get a bit of a chance. But today I'm going to do the bulk of the planting with the plants that I got today. So we're going to start off with some Eliocaris. So unfortunately, directly after I started this, my microphone battery died and I didn't realize for a while, so I just didn't record any audio for my planting. But I started out planting the Eliocaris. It was quite a bit longer than I thought for the mini, but since having it in the tank and giving it a trim, it's gotten a bit shorter and a bit nicer. So I believe it was just because it was immerse grown. So after planting the Eliocaris, I wanted some crypts in this tank, and this is Crypt Wallisii, which is quite a nice sort of longer leafed crypt, which I planted in the back of the tree there, which I think gives a nice bit of height and a nice little leaf shape. After planting this crypt, I also managed to get my hands on some Starogine Porto Velho. I'll put the name on the screen. It's similar to the S. repens, but thinner, longer leafed variety, which is pretty cool. And then finally in the back corner, the other plant that I bought was the Hygrophila pinnatophyta. I believe this was also grown out of water because this was absolutely gargantuan. These were huge. And since planting and trimming, I've noticed that a lot of the new growth is a lot smaller than what this is. So I think it was just going crazy being grown out of the water and having a good old time. So the next day, because it had been a bit late and the plants sort of just arrived late that afternoon, I decided to plant the other plants that I had in my other tank. So I started off with some Marsilia hirsuta. Now this Marsilia got a bit butchered because I had to give it a pretty decent treatment with some of the Seacam XL because it had, the tank it came from had a bunch of algae, and it was sort of the cladophore type algae, which can spread pretty easy, and I didn't want to take any chances. So a lot of the leaves died off shortly after being planted, but the sort of roots and everything stayed, and they've started to grow back now after a while. But at the time it was looking a bit rough. So in amongst the Starogine Porto Velho, I also planted some S. repens. I wanted to give a few little different contrasts and textures of leaves and the different shapes. And I really have been liking it as a nice sort of mid-ground small detail plant lately. After planting the S. repens, it was on to some more crypts. So I had some crypt lutea, which I planted just here, and then also some crypt mioya, I believe it's pronounced. I'll also put the name on the screen, which I planted elsewhere throughout the tank. I like the look of the crypts. I think they're a good size and they're good sort of color and shape to complement this tree and make it look like it has pretty good proportions and look kind of natural. And after planting the crypts, it was on to maybe my favorite plant in the hobby, which is Blixa japonica. I wanted a nice grassy plant, something with a little bit of length in the leaves, but not something that's going to get crazy and out of control. I tried to get some Halantium tenellum and some other plants like that, but unfortunately the growers that I use just didn't have any, and I have a bunch of Blixa in some other tanks, so I thought, you know what, I'll put the Blixa in. I absolutely love it. And now onto another plant which I absolutely love, which is the Rotala bonsai or Amania bonsai. I'm not sure if it's been renamed. I like this plant. It's nice stem, it grows pretty quick, has a really nice leaf color and structure, and it doesn't get too massive, which is perfect for this tank. So I've dotted it all around the back of the tank, and especially in that corner to be a nice little accent decorative plant for there. And then finally, it was onto the epiphytes. So I sort of used a mix of Anubias and Boos. Unfortunately, I didn't get much good footage of this because I was very dumb and stood in front of the camera. But we had some Anubias Jade, some Anubias Pinto, Anubias Nana Mini, or Mini Coin, I think, or Bonsai, one of the really smaller ones. And then we had some Boos Nanga Mahap, which is a really nice green Boos, which I absolutely love. And now this is the tank after a good sort of month and a bit. It had a bit of a rocky start because, a few days after planting, I actually went on holidays to Japan, and it got a bit neglected, obviously, because no one was here to do water changes. So when I came back, we had a pretty severe cyanobacteria or blue-green algae outbreak, which I've more or less got on top of. I just need to do some final little bits. You'll see it in the background of some shots. But the plants are looking fantastic. I love the way the Amania bonsai is looking. It's got some beautiful pink leaves. The light is really nice. The carpet's filling out. The hirsuta's coming back in. The fish in here are some celestial pearl danios. I've had these guys for a long time. They're one of my favorite fish. I think they look so gorgeous. But I only had them in breeding tanks, and so I was never actually had them in any scape. So I thought this is the perfect scape for them. They're a beautiful fish, perfect size. They dart around the tree. It looks amazing. So I'm going to need a few more fish to put in here. So if you've got any suggestions, leave them down in the comments below. I was thinking maybe pygmy cories or something that will sort of swim around a bit more, give a bit more height. But apart from that, I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys liked the scape, and if you did, please consider giving the video a like and consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.